Just here at the Rapid tournament. Played the first game, and it's a six round Swiss. So I've played the first game and played that nice and steadily actually, and I've wrote the grid. I drew a grid on some pieces of paper, so 6 pieces of paper, and with the sort of like board outline, and obviously I'm not notating, so that's what we agreed last time. But what I wanted to do was capture the images afterwards. You can't use your phone obviously for obvious reasons, so then I just jotted down the positions of the end of the games. So the first game and was interesting, blocking off quite a lot of stuff. Thought initially I was on a good winning streak. Played it nice and steadily, blocked off everything, looked like I was winning during the game. Like I say, what didn't notate, so I got nothing to balance anything on. So looking fairly strong, and then they ended up being a pawn up, but they couldn't make that pawn work in terms of an advantage. After the discussions afterwards as well, we went through different formulas, different ways of working, and potentially it did look like a draw even though they had a pawn up. There may have been a way of working it. I've got the end game position on there, so I'll stick it on the computer, and obviously it's going to show that they're winning because they've got a +1 pawn. But after the game, the opponent couldn't find anything. I mean, they offered the draw, and I was really surprised. I was like, well, surely it can do something. But we as humans worked through the continuations, and the key thing was the time factor as well. He didn't believe he had the time to try and do some cajoling with the centre pawns, because I was going to be constantly trying to threaten going around the back and putting a check on his king, and maybe just going for a repetition that way because 2 of his pawns were blocking his king. But maybe he could have moseyed his king down through the centre and stuff like that. Might have been a longer game type of formation, like they were saying as well. So it probably, if it was a longer game, maybe, but because it was a short game, time was getting low, he offered the draw, and I accepted obviously. So that was the first game. And then went back into the second game, and this player was definitely one of the players who shouldn't really have been in our section, in the under 1600 section. They should have been in the 2000 section. And so we went through the game, and I was doing doing quite good. Opening nice and steady away, keeping up with his pace and everything, and I think I got giddy. I thought, wow, this is really good, this is really easy. So I moved my knight, but then I moved my knight and his queen could put a check on my king, and he was going to get the knight for free. So then the game played out, and basically, yeah, I couldn't really gain any further advantages or try and capture any advantages. So basically I just folded my king down, and the end game is displayed. But again, that's one of those where I wasn't getting mashed up, I wasn't getting blown out of the water, so I'm not losing any sleep over it. I'll play anybody now. It's a warm one today. Whew. So yeah, just finished round 3, and I got there late because I was doing this narration thing on the last one. So my clock was 12 minutes down. Well, I was on 12 minutes, they were still on 15 minutes, so I'd lost 3 minutes. So yeah, just started the game, and it was pretty interesting. Nice steady opening, nice mid-game, then took a little bit of an advantage with putting some compound pressure on a centre pawn, and they had an X-ray. I had an X-ray through with my rook and their bishop to their king, so they were feeling a bit of pinch in that sense. So it was the opening that I don't like, you know, that opening I don't like, but because I've been practicing it, I still don't like it. Even now, I've been practicing it for so long, but I really don't like it. It feels like I'm playing left-handed chess or something or the other. But I've kind of trained myself to get used to the not liking of it, and worked it through quite nicely, and got the pin through, The opponent didn't do the normal moves that the opponents would do, so I thought, oh, this looks pretty interesting. And then she played well. I thought personally she played well up to mid-game type thing, defending that pawn as best possible, but then overstretched, I think, and took away the protection for that pawn. So we were then owning the open file with the rooks, but it wasn't a big ownership. We were +1, but remember in the first game they were +1, but they just couldn't see a way in. Same type of thing here. It's like, yeah, we're +1. The +1 was doubled, so it was like doubled in front of our king. So in essence, I'm thinking, well, it's still even here. Coming in towards the end game, the queens came off and everything, and it looked pretty tense. So we're just jostling little pawns here and there, just moving from side to side. Tried to angle my bishop down to one side. She blocked it off nice and steadily, but we were building a little bit more position, which was advantageous for us, slowly but surely, and our bishop could then protect our pawn majority. Key thing I learned from the open tournaments, yeah, because we have the pawn majority, the +1, even though it was doubled. I thought, let's get our bishop around with them, acting like a pawn, and if it gets to the later stages of the end game, then maybe it should be a bit of an advantage. And they basically got a pawn on the end that was passed, but our bishop was blocking its way. We had like a diamond shape with our bishop protecting our pawns, and if their pawn was pushed down, we'd be able to take it off the board. Their king was trying to get around to our bishop, and we had a pawn on a black square which their bishop was trying to attack, and we pushed it up. We thought this pawn is going to go anyway because he's got a dark square bishop, and my king is really wanting to support the other pawns on the other side of the board, so that at least then we've got a pass pawn on that side for them to contend with. So yeah, it was nice and steady, slow, patient type thing. Their time was running out, and they started doing quick moves, just moving the king up and down, and then they eventually just took their pawn off the board. They took our pawn off with the bishop, but the position was really shot because we were going to just run the king up, supporting our pawn. We'd end up taking their bishop off the board, and then we've got like, say, 2 pawns or 3 pawns which the bishop's protecting at the minute, and our king would just work its way around and support them, and we would get a promotion. At that point, they resigned. We're currently on 1 draw, 1 loss from the player who shouldn't really be playing in our category, and 1 advantageous game. We've got 3 more to go. It's a 6-round Swiss, so it's a long day of putting this stuff into play. It really does feel so weird not notating. Just finished round 4, and that game the opponent was just blitzing out the moves right at the very beginning. I stayed calm, played slow, looked like I was getting under his skin a little bit because I was playing so slow, and got in half decent position, and miraculously ended up being a pawn up because I was taking my time, nice and slow, nice and steady. It seemed to infuriate them a little bit. Then they started to play slow, and from the advantageous game I had in the last game, I felt fairly okay with the performance I was putting in. Felt okay in the performance I put in for this this game as well. And then it all seemed to unravel. Strange as it may seem, in my head I'm still getting used to actually playing and not notating. It's really weird. It's a weird feeling. And in the latter half of the game, I started playing quick. I started playing quick because in my head I'm thinking, oh yeah, got this, and pawn up, nice position. And then again, and I'm a knight man, aren't I? I'm a knight man, and I like my knights. And I think I got carried away with this knight. Like in the second game, I got carried away with the knight. So we are on 1 draw, 1 loss, 1 win, 1 loss. So 2 losses, 1 draw and 1 win at this moment in time. I'll just finish the 5th round match, just waiting to go in for the number 6. So this one basically started off quite okay. Nice basic opening. I thought, my crikey, this is right up my street, nice and simple. We managed to gain a little bit of advantage in the game at the beginning, so that was quite tasty. And then we kind of kept that advantage all the way through the game, and at some point I thought, oh, I'm waiting for a resignation here, I'm feeling really good. But what I said to myself was this: savor the moment, dude. Don't rush anything, because you know we've messed up these types of end games before. So I genuinely really just, not physically sat on my hands, but I just like sat and looked. I was down to like 3 minutes or something, but there was no pressure on the position. I gained an advantage with having an extra minor piece, and I did actually sit there smarting to myself thinking, where did that knight come from? So there was like an exchange of pieces, etc., and then suddenly I was like a knight up. And then I thought, okay, now these can easily be messed up. We've seen it online, we've seen it in over the board games. So really kind of knuckled down to just focus on keeping the pieces working together and putting pressure on weak areas, weak pieces, and most importantly focusing on supporting my pawn majority whilst attacking their pawn majority. And it worked a treat. The opponent wasn't giving up, which made it even more tense, because I'm thinking, oh, this is how we mess up now, this is where things go wrong. And so we stayed as tight as possible, we blocked off every attempt that they were making, and slowly but surely we gained an advantage, and eventually the opponent resigned. So really chuffed with that. So we are now 2 advantage games, 2 losses, and 1 draw. So we're going into this last game in good shape. I don't like to do compare.com, but compared to some, we're not doing too bad. So I'm really quite happy with that. So we are ready for the last one. Everybody's going to be tired, and they're going to be blitzing out the moves like anything. They're going to be going, oops. They're going to be going absolutely crazy with the speed. I've just got to go to sleep, but not too much, because it's not long play game, and it's amazing how quickly the time goes down as well. Anyway, report back soon.
Okay, round 6, and this last game, playing a little girl, and very pleasant, very polite, and very calm in her play as well. And we both took our time. She wasn't blitzing any moves out, nice and steady away, and started to gain a bit of advantage, doubling pawns in her structure, and then just targeting the weaker areas, and then capturing pieces bit by bit to eventually build a nice end game for us.